Welcome back to our channel where we share updates and untold stories about Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. Today, we bring you some new Prince William breaks silence after Harry criticized King Charles amid his cancer battle. Prince William is said to have broken his silence for the first time after Buckingham made a last remark to Prince Harry for criticizing his father during his interview on BBC on the security. This information comes from an insider source. In this change of events, Prince William has made a brave comment about the issue with his brother. This level of thunder has not been heard at Buckingham Palace in many years. Courtiers maintained a stiff upper lip and muttered, "No comment," during most of the Sussex story. All the while, cameras were roaming constantly from Frogmore Cottage to Montecito. However, on May 2nd, 2025, a single statement broke the facade of royal quiet and caused waves to be felt across the press rooms of many British newspapers. Although the court has deliberated on each of these matters on several occasions, and with a considerable deal of attention to detail, it has always arrived at the same decision. The remark was brief and almost icy, yet undeniably pointed. The Crown would not accept the guilt that Prince Harry had attributed to it. Earlier, the Court of Appeal had rejected Harry's last bid to reclaim the blanket police protection that he had given up when he left frontline duty 5 years ago. The case was a rare instance of the royal family being rebuked. Lord Justice Geoffrey Voss, who was accompanied by 2 other senior judges, came to the conclusion that the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, also known as RAVEC, had acted in a manner that was understandable and predictable when it placed the Duke of Sussex on a pay-as-you-go protection structure. The court emphasized that the law remained unbending simply because a defendant had previously served the Crown. Harry's attorneys claimed that the ruling put not only the prince, but also his wife and children at risk. Under normal circumstances, Buckingham Palace would have given a solemn nod and then withdrawn privately behind closed doors. This time, the situation was completely different. Almost immediately after the decision was made, the authorities released their brief response, which was ostensibly a clarification but had the tone of a royal shout. The institution responded to Harry's complaints for the very first time since he started voicing his frustrations in TV specials, podcasts, and a book that read like a public therapy session. The phrase had the unmistakable fingerprints of the Prince of Wales, according to those who paid attention to the palace. King Charles's heartbreaking feeling. People who are closest to King Charles claim that the king took in Harry's broadside from the BBC like a knife to an already raw wound, despite the fact that the palace has provided a flinty retort. Courtiers remember an unpleasant scenario that took place in the Oak Room at Clarence House the morning after the interview was broadcast. The king, who was pallid following a chemotherapy treatment that took place at daybreak, repeated the section on a television that was muted while assistants combed through newspaper clippings that had been produced overnight. It was said that Charles straightened up, closed his eyes, and pushed 2 fingers to the bridge of his nose as Harry's on-camera lament that "My father still has the power to make this right" ran across the ticker. Things was a wordless gesture that conveyed both grief and resignation. "It felt as though old grief met new frailty," a senior equerry admitted in a subsequent conversation. Charles is still a father who, in the past, marched through a sea of flowers behind the coffin of his own mother, escorting those same 2 sons past flashbulbs and grief. This is although there is a lot of discussion about constitutional boundaries that must not be crossed. Nevertheless, 27 years after Diana's burial, he is again confronted with the potential of leaving this world before fixing the family divide. According to his advisors, the notion rips at him more than the tumors that physicians target each week. The king's anguish has been represented in a rush of late-night messages to his private secretary, seeking feasible gestures that would calm tensions without weakening the court's legal stance. These memos have been sent behind closed doors. Following William's argument that any action that went beyond the established process would give the impression of rewarding popular pressure, One option, which was to send the Lord Chamberlain to Montecito with a personal letter that was sealed, was discreetly abandoned. Another concept, which was a video chat that would be monitored by the Archbishop of Canterbury, was put on hold after lawyers from the palace cautioned that it would be subpoenaed due to potential litigation. According to those with knowledge of the situation, each scheme that was abandoned seemed to leave new lines of exhaustion on Charles's face. One bitter contradiction is brought to the attention of those who are close to him. The king's greatest public responsibility is to exemplify stoic continuity, yet his private impulse is to be conciliatory. In the beginning of the year, when he was experiencing a short period of remission, he had the intention of inviting Harry to Balmoral for what he referred to as a healing summer. Currently, medical professionals are warning that such a trip could be difficult, and the window of opportunity for reconciliation is becoming smaller with each blood test. A close acquaintance of the family makes the observation that he watches the calendar like a man reading an hourglass. Nevertheless, Charles is also aware of the weight of the precedent set by the crown. The exile of Edward VIII is still a part of Windsor legend, and the present king, who has spent decades rebuilding the monarchy after that scandal and others, is concerned about looking indulgent toward a son who, in the eyes of the public, decided to leave. Friends have referred to his predicament as a trap of love and legacy. He must either show pity and risk causing a constitutional scandal, or he must stay steadfast and risk dying alienated from his family. The monarch's sadness is mostly concealed from view for now, as it is concealed behind the crimson drapes of his study and the impeccable tailoring of his public appearances. The staff, however, whispers that Charles's eyes linger on a framed photograph of two boys wearing matching blazers outside Wetherby School on quiet afternoons when the palace corridors fall still. This photograph serves as a reminder of simpler times, before the image of a united royal family was shattered by duty, distance, and an unforgiving modern media. Inside the palace gates, William's angry reaction. The courtiers had been quietly brewing Prince William's anger for several weeks. During a private conversation, he referred to his brother's most recent interview with the BBC as a cheap shot. He was enraged by the fact that Harry claimed that King Charles could just pick up the phone and override an independent security committee. William's aide said the claim was a double affront. It insulted the king's integrity and the constitutional line the House of Windsor must never breach. According to the insiders, the spreadsheets that were surreptitiously circulating around Clarence House contributed to the escalation of William's fury. The Sussexes' legal expenses, production overruns, and reported private debts were all recorded in these records, which were produced by a small team of accountants that William employed shortly after acquiring the Duchy of Cornwall. The sum had surpassed £21 million and was whispered along halls decorated with paintings of more frugal kings. William apparently raged when Harry referred to himself as unprotected and said that family had somehow forced the security dagger deeper. Harry's statement caused William to break down in tears. He lost his temper and yelled out, "Enough!" while demanding an honest response from his father's office. Although he was debilitated by cancer treatments, King Charles engaged his most trusted advisors. He was nevertheless acutely conscious of the public aesthetics. The palace greenlit the statement within 24 hours after its first announcement. The last word from the court. Lord Voss delivered his verdict with the force of a marble gavel during the rising tensions within the family, reminding the Duke that the responsibility of Ravec was to protect individuals who were carrying out official tasks on behalf of the crown was not lost on him. Harry had freely chosen to abdicate that responsibility. In the event that he arrived from California, Ravec would determine, based on the most recent information and the degree of danger, the number of police officers who were required, if any at all. According to the court, it was a completely reasonable agreement. Legal experts did not find the agreement surprising. Virtually 14 months previously, Harry had already been unsuccessful in a virtually similar case. The fresh appeal, discussed over 2 wet spring mornings in London, was always going to be a challenging battle. However, this time, Harry's arguments were imbued with emotion, making the loss more difficult to endure. He expressed his concern for Archie and Lilibet's lives, his worry that time would pass as his father fought the sickness, and his desire to make things right before death permanently silenced the family in a part that was shown by the BBC the night before the verdict. The episode was filled with tears. Lastly, Harry's letter of last resort. Subsequently, the letter appeared on the website Sussexes.com. The letter, presented in a polished, mournful, and strategic manner, expressed gratitude to the justices of the appeal court for their efforts, declared the legal struggle as a last resort, and aimed a volley directly at the palace armor. Harry wrote that the royal household was the key agency responsible for making decisions on Ravek. As a result of this procedure, I have acquired the identities of everyone who was engaged, and a significant number of them retired soon after starting their duties. It was considered heresy by those who adhered to the conservative view of the royal family to accuse the aides of the sovereign of secretly assembling a committee and then disappearing after the task was completed. The letter made a commitment to love Britain without end and vowed to serve the public for the rest of one's life, but it pounded home one demand that could not be negotiated away: security on par with that enjoyed by individuals who had never served their nation or the monarch. According to Harry's account, he was a soldier who was abandoned on the battlefield, while other less capable soldiers sought refuge within the walls of the castle. Debts, money, and motivations that are increasing. Within the walls of the castle, William's new financial advisors were meticulously going over ledgers. Because he is keen to simplify the monarchy before he reaches the throne, the Prince of Wales has positioned himself as the protector of the money that is contributed by taxpayers. In addition to reducing the number of households, renegotiating supply contracts, and, most controversially, ending stipends that were surreptitiously provided to the extended Windsor family, consultants recruited from the commercial sector have also accomplished these things. There was a time when Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, Camilla's children, were the recipients of modest payments for their official representation. William plans to eliminate the allowances upon Charles's passing. This cost-cutting campaign is William's passion project, according to people with knowledge of the situation. According to his calculations, every pound saved is equivalent to purchasing credibility for an organization that is often accused of surviving on inherited privilege. Upon discovering, once again via back channels, that Harry's California projects were wasting money faster than they were earning it, the prince seemingly concluded that his brother's security efforts were less about safety and more about squandering money. Journalists who edit tabloids devoured it. Stories about Spotify's termination, Netflix's underperformance, and Montecito's extravagant landscaping expenses filled column inches. It was anticipated in a widely circulated piece that Meghan and Harry will be responsible for well over £5 million in legal bills by the end of the year, in addition to security charges in the United States. Royal commentators, who have never shown any compassion for the exiled prince, started portraying the security case as an attempt to put expenditures back onto the shoulders of Canadian taxpayers. The silent phone war between brothers. While this is going on, the Wales home asserts that Harry attempted an unusual ploy, which consisted of going over his father and calling William directly. During the latter part of April, Harry reportedly made 2 calls to Kensington Palace, during which he left notes that mentioned Archie, Lilibet, and Dad's health. William chose not to answer the calls after receiving reassurance from the personnel that the outreach activities were connected to the security stalemate. Instead, a senior private secretary sent a direct message that stated, "You've caused enough difficulty. While you're away, your kids won't get royal titles, and you won't get money to pay your debts." Reporters have confirmed the general idea, although the harshness of the remarks remains up for debate. Friends of the prince claim that William's anguish has solidified into a philosophy that neither recognizes nor rewards treachery. In order for Harry to get advantages, he must re-enter the royal fold, suppress his objections, and assume the same responsibility that every other working Windsor endures. William will not relinquish his position if those prerequisites remain unmet. Contradictions in public opinion. When it came to choosing sides, the British people were ready to do so, and the divisions were virtually generational. 20-something social media users shared video of the Duke of Windsor in Afghanistan and pointed out that worldwide superstars often get police escorts on British territory. The hashtag #StandWithHarry became a trending topic on social media platforms. In letters sent to the editors of newspapers, voters of a more senior age level accused Harry of dimming the crown after torching it. Overnight, a survey conducted by Sky Data indicated that 58% of respondents were against the idea of reinstating complete state security, 28% were in favor of it, and 14% were unsure about their position. Academics who study the Constitution agreed with the majority. A reminder was given to the audience that, according to the convention, sovereigns are not permitted to intervene in ongoing judicial battles, particularly those that involve public monies. Charles would have ignited a constitutional storm if he had called the Home Secretary and asked for a re-examination of Harry's case. Radio 4 was informed by a lecturer that Harry is essentially requesting that his father act in a manner identical to that of an absolute monarch. Since the year 1688, the United Kingdom has not had one of those. Some observers, on the other hand, perceived tragedy rather than treason. Royal biographer Omid Scobie proposed that the Sussexes faced punishment for their pursuit of independence. He stated, "They were told they couldn't be half in, half out. That's fine. However, they later realized that they could not be completely open about their situation." In his defense, Scobie portrayed Harry's legal battle as a natural consequence of an institution that was either incapable or unwilling to formulate new regulations for a more international era. William's position on the austerity. William continues to work hard inside the company. His administration is going to create a dashboard called Transparent Accounts this summer. The platform will furnish details on the allocation of duchy funds for official engagements, personnel wages, and property maintenance. Aides have said that the prince intends to eliminate several grace and favor apartments that were formerly held by minor royals, therefore relocating their relatives to private properties at the same time. It is claimed that he is examining the expenses associated with royal trains and helicopters, which is a move that is intended to demonstrate that the palace is reducing its own luxury prior to delivering a speech to the public on constriction. Some individuals who oppose the campaign criticize it as superficial, while others who support it describe it as a necessary modernization. To provide William with an implicit model, they refer to the Scandinavian kingdoms, which are smaller, less expensive, and dependably popular. Within the framework of that vision, there is simply no place for a distant duke over the Atlantic to demand that armed officers be maintained in readiness. Concerning safety, compassion, and the future. How does Harry fare in light of this? From a legal perspective, his situation is dire. The ministers of the United Kingdom will not revisit the structure of Ravec until they receive new evidence of an extreme danger. It is still possible for him to have limited police coverage while he is attending high-profile events. Nevertheless, his right to security around the clock is no longer available. Privately sponsored bodyguards may accompany him, but the United Kingdom prohibits them from carrying guns. This is precisely the shortcoming that Harry claims puts his family in danger. When it comes to their finances, the Sussexes are in a difficult position. It has been reported that the drama that takes place over the Atlantic Ocean is wearing on the generous benefactors. Streaming income is also decreasing. One Los Angeles-based publicist, once optimistic about the couple's ability to generate money, now forecasts that they will shift their focus to content collaborations and speaking tours outside of the Hollywood industry. The brothers appear emotionally estranged and stranded on different shores. The inner circle of William claims that he is unaffected by Harry's predicament. Rather, he only feels that public confidence is dependent on standards. Harry's friends argue that the rules constantly change whenever a Windsor tries to leave the family's circle. No one on either side appears to be ready to blink. A statement from the palace echoes. The 23-word reply may have made by Buckingham Palace will be remembered as the most belligerent remark made by the royal house since Queen Elizabeth's reaction to Oprah, in which she said that recollections may vary. The statement made it clear that no senior royal would accept responsibility for Harry's lost security, and no amount of public pleadings could persuade them otherwise. The courtiers say that giving the retort was like opening the steam valve. They also suggest that additional outbursts are unlikely unless Harry engages in more aggressive behavior. However, escalation seems practically unavoidable in a family drama filled with memoirs, litigation, and teardrops shown on television. According to royal historians, genuine reconciliation in Windsor legend often results from a common sorrow or a national catastrophe. This is the case regardless of the circumstances. At this moment, the crisis is personal, and the tragedy is something that was created by the individual themselves. While an exiled prince begs for protection money, a functional monarchy is tightening its purse strings to safeguard its finances. In the middle of the conflict was a father who was either too sick or too bound by constitutional rules to act as an arbitrator. This is the epilogue: two brothers, one crown. One might be tempted to view this as a Shakespearean drama. Two princes raised in the same palace but fated to fight over duty and destiny. However, as contemporary Britain is not a feudal country, the public's tolerance for disagreements between princes is limited. If William's estimates are correct, the monarchy he will inherit will be more efficient, less costly, and more resistant to 21st century scrutiny. When Harry's predictions come true, it is possible that a family that rejects one of its members would discover that their public status is diminished rather than improved. Right now, the palace's lights remain dim behind the black and gold railings. A recovering king is somewhere within the building poring over red boxes, while his successor goes over the financial sheets. As the spare travels across the ocean, he mulls over the possibility of taking yet another long-distance journey, but this time without the escort that he considers his birthright. In the next chapter, the events will take place in whispers rather than proclamations, until one brother moves closer to the other. In the meanwhile, the most audacious declaration has already been documented, and it can be heard reverberating through the marble hallways of a castle that seldom raises its voice. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts, and goodbye for now.